Slavery did not begin in America. It did not begin in Europe. It began the moment one human group discovered it could force another to work for them. Long before kings carved their names into stone, long before modern nations even existed, human beings were already being taken as property. The oldest clay tablets from Mesopotamia, written more than 4,000 years before Christ, already describe slaves, debt bondage, and captives of war. By the time humans even learned to write, slavery was already an ancient institution. In ancient Egypt, foreign captives were marched into quarries and mines to build the immense wealth of the pharaohs. In India, rigid social divisions locked entire families into lifelong servitude through the caste system. In China, slaves were branded, bought, sold, and passed down from one generation to the next. In Greece, men died horrible deaths in the silver mines to fuel its golden age. In Rome, it's estimated that nearly 1/3 of the entire population lived in chains. Across Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, slavery was just normal. It was legal. It was universal. Every single major civilization practiced it, and every single race endured it. Think about this. Everyone alive today, no matter who you are or where you're from, descends from someone who survived it. Long before European ships ever reached the coast of Africa, vast and sophisticated slave systems already stretched across continents. The Arab slave trade, for instance, lasted for more than 1,000 years. It moved millions of Africans, but also Persians, Slavs, Greeks, and others across vast deserts and treacherous oceans. In the year 869, something incredible happened. 500,000 African slaves rose up in what is now Iraq, in one of the largest and most significant slave rebellions in all of human history. And across Africa itself, powerful kingdoms like Dahomey, Ashanti, Oyo, and Congo built their entire political and economic systems on slave raiding and export. This wasn't something imposed on them from the outside, it was a central part of their power structure. Meanwhile, in the Americas, the Aztecs, the Comanche, the Inca, and countless other native tribes all practiced their own forms of slavery long before Columbus ever arrived on their shores. And let's not forget the Mediterranean world. The Barbary corsairs, pirates from North Africa, enslaved over 1 million Europeans between the 1500s and 1800s, raiding coastlines as far north as Iceland. So, the world did not discover slavery in the Atlantic. The Atlantic inherited it. What made the Atlantic system different? It wasn't the cruelty, though it was unimaginably cruel. It wasn't the scale, though it was massive. And it wasn't even the idea of racial domination, which has appeared in many forms of slavery throughout history. What made the Atlantic system unique was a combination of things: industrial-scale profit, global navigation, advanced bureaucracy, and timing. Between the 1500s and 1800s, roughly 12.5 million Africans were forced onto ships and sent across the Atlantic. The numbers are staggering. Nearly 5 million of them went to Brazil to work the sugar plantations. Another 4 million went to the Caribbean islands. Only about 3 to 4%, roughly 380,000 people, were brought directly to the shores of what would become the United States. Slavery followed the money first, and the ideology second. It wasn't a perfectly monolithic system. Free black communities existed even in the heart of slave societies. Some black Americans even owned slaves themselves. The system didn't function because of a belief in racial purity. It functioned because it generated enormous, almost unimaginable wealth for those at the top. And unlike those ancient systems that have faded into distant memory, this one ended only 6 or 7 generations ago. People alive right now had great-grandparents who were born into slavery. That closeness, that proximity in time, makes its pain feel so much heavier, so much more personal and immediate for us today. But then, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in all of recorded history, humanity as a whole began to declare that slavery was morally wrong. It was a revolutionary idea. Britain outlawed the slave trade in 1807, and then spent the next several decades using its powerful navy to hunt down slave ships and destroy the trade across the world. Then came the American reckoning. The U.S. Civil War was a cataclysm that killed over 620,000 people. Nearly 500,000 white Americans died in a war that had, at its absolute core, the abolition of slavery. Finally, in 1865, the United States abolished it. Brazil followed in 1888. Saudi Arabia waited until 1962, and the last country to formally abolish it, Mauritania, didn't do so until 1981 and didn't make it truly a crime until 2007. After thousands and thousands of years, the oldest institution on earth finally began to break. Yet today the history we're taught is not the full story. It's often curated. The Atlantic slave trade is frequently presented as if it were the beginning and the end of slavery itself, while the 1,000-year-long Arab trade, the powerful African slave kingdoms, and the widespread indigenous American slave systems are barely mentioned, if at all. Why? The answer is simple. Division is power. If people understood that all of humanity, every race, and every culture passed through this same fire, we would stop fighting each other over whose ancestors suffered more. We'd start questioning the people who are rewriting the story to keep us divided. Slavery was universal. But so was survival. Every civilization that practiced it eventually fell, and every people who endured it eventually rebuilt. What matters most is not what happened back then, but what we choose to build now together. And the moment people understand the whole complicated, messy story of our shared past, the world becomes a far, far harder place for anyone to control. Thanks for watching. If this story made you think, please share it and subscribe for more content that goes beyond the headlines. See you next time.